Hello, Algebra Prep students. This is Mrs. Kim here. We are here today going to review Unit 3. We take our Unit 3 test this Friday. We have learned all the topics for Unit 3, and so now today we're going to do 10 problems together, just reviewing to make sure we are ready for our Unit 3 test. And then you have homework on Edulastic, and the test is also going to be on Edulastic. So the homework hopefully will give you a chance to use the program, and you'll be able to ask questions on Wednesday or Thursday with any of the problems, with the program, with any of that before you take your test on Friday. So Unit 3, here we go. So we started Unit 3 with simple one-step problems, right? So here's an example of a little one-step problem. So I have negative 8 equals negative 2 plus x, right? And for all these problems, you're going to be expected to do the steps and to do the check, right? So make sure you're doing all of the work. You're going to have to turn in all that, right? So here we go. I'm going to draw my wall down my equal sign. I cover up the x. Then what's connected to the x, see if I can use the highlight key here, right? This right here is what is connected to the x, the negative 2. So the negative 2 is what we have to get rid of. So we get rid of negative 2 by adding 2 to both sides, right? So step 1 is add 2. And then we call this a two-step equation, right? A one-step equation, i.e. because there's only one step, right? We added the 2, now the x is by itself, so a negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6, so my answer is x equals negative 6, right? Only one step. Now we're going to go over here and we're going to take the original problem and we're going to take out the x. Oops, that wasn't right. So it happens when I'm talking and writing at the same time. Negative 2 plus x. We're going to take the x here out, and in its place, we're going to put the negative 6 we found, right? So that becomes negative 6. So I have negative 8 equals negative 2. With these little one-step problems, the check seems a little silly because really we just need to check if this is right. Negative 2 minus 6 or negative 2 plus negative 6, right? If we do keep, change, switch, if we keep, change, switch that, is negative 8, which is true. So the check on the one-step equations is very straightforward and simple, right? If the problem is one step, then the check probably only really has one step. All right, so there's one step. Let's do another one step. So here is, I'll just draw a little line here, kind of keep us organized. All right, number 2. Number 2, I'm going to do x over negative 3 equals 2. Right, and again, this is a one-step problem. So it's one step because we have one term there on the left, x is negative 3, it's all one term, right? So when we had on the first problem, we had two terms on the right. We had negative 2 and we had plus x. This problem, we have one term on the left, one term on the right. So to undo what's attached to that x, that means it's going to multiply or divide. And since this is a division symbol here, the fraction is a division, means we're going to multiply both sides by negative 3, right? And so I'm going to do a negative 3 over 1 on this side with a multiply sign, right? Because that means these negative 3's divide out and leave us with 1. That leaves me with x, if I drew my wall, x here on the left equals 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Now my steps, again, it's a one-step problem, so it's just one step, multiply by negative 3. And then when I go ahead and do my check here, if we wrote the problem out, right, this is what we're checking. We're going to take the x out, and we're going to put in that place negative 6. Look, we got the same answer as before. Up top, it's kind of interesting. So negative 6 divided by negative 3 equals 2. And this does, in fact, equals 2. If you want to write it out, you want to check it, put a check mark, right? But negative divided by negative is positive. 6 divided by 3 is 2. All right, so there we go. We got first two problems done. Now let's take a look. So remember, as you're going through these, if I am talking too fast or writing too fast, you need to pause it, take a breath, fill everything else in, make sure you're answering the questions. There's not going to be a question for all 10 of these. There'll just be a few questions as we go, but make sure you're answering the questions on play pause it as we go, and that way you can get credit for the notes. But feel free at any time to pause to make sure you have everything written down. Remember, on the test, you're able to use your notes and you're able to use your homework. So if you take down these notes really well, they might help you on the test you're taking on Friday. All right, so let's try another, put a blank page up here. All right, so number 3, this time, let's do a problem that's more than one step. So I have 2x plus 9 equals 15, right? So I'm going to draw my wall. Right, this time we have more than one step because we have two terms on the left and the x term has a coefficient, right? So that means we have to get rid of the coefficient at some point as well. So my first step here is going to be to get rid of, if I do the highlight thing here, right? To get rid of, ooh, that didn't work so well. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Don't know where my thing went. We're going to have to get rid of the 9 there. So let me just go ahead and switch over. We'll just do the subtraction here, right? So in order to get rid of plus 9, we need to subtract 9 from both sides because we want to get the 2x by itself. So our first step is to subtract 9, right? In our step column, subtract 9. That means 2x comes down here. My equal sign on the wall, 15 minus 9, let's see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6. Sometimes it's easier to count on your fingers. Feel free to use a calculator when you're doing this as well. Right, now we need to get x by itself. So to undo, when there's a number attached to the letter, it's all the same term, that's multiply or divide. So this says 2 times x. The opposite of 2 times x is divide. So we're going to divide by 2, both sides. And that gives me 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that leaves me x equals 3. So this was a two-step problem. There were 2 steps in the middle column. Now we're going to take the original problem over here. I'm just going to write it out again so I can clearly see it. And then we're going to substitute our answer of 3 in for x. So the x becomes 3, right? The rest of the problem writes down. The 15 I don't even need to worry about right now. I'm just going to worry about doing the left-hand side. I like to do my checks on one side or the other side, so I'm going to work here on the left. So 3 times 2 is 6 plus 9. 6 plus 9 is 15, and that's what we wanted it to equal, so we're good, right? We only had to do math on the left side only because that was the only side that had an x. 15 equals 15 is true. That means we're good. Work, steps, check. You're gonna have to show us all that on your work that you upload to us and turn in for your test. We are going to grade it all, not just what the Edulastic portion that's going to be online shows. Sorry, so that's number 3. Let's look at number 4. So number 4, let's look at this one. So if I do x over 5 plus 2 equals negative 8. All right, draw my wall. All right, so first thing we need to do is figure out our first step. So I have x divided by 5 plus 2 equals negative 8. That means we need to get the variable term by itself, the x divided by 5. To get the variable term by itself, we need to subtract 2 from both sides. So subtract 2. That means x divided by 5 comes down, equal comes down my wall. Negative 8 minus 2, negative 8 plus negative 2 is a negative 10. And then in order to undo x divided by 5, the opposite of divide by is multiply. So we're going to multiply this side by 5 over 1 because it's a fraction, and this side by 5. So really we're multiplying by 5 or 5 over 1. Those are really the same thing, right? Because 5 divided by 5 is 1. That's x equals negative 10 times 5 is negative 50, right? There's my answer. X equals negative 50. So then we're going to check it. Let's see. X divided by 5 plus 2 equals negative 8. We're going to take that x here, and we're going to plug in for that x a negative 50. So I have negative 50, and then we're going to divide that by 5 plus 2. I don't need to worry about the right now. Negative 50 divided by 5 is negative 10, because you do divide before you do add, and then negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8, which is what we wanted. Yay! Our check worked out. We're going to be doing, Miss Amster and I have already been mapping out Unit 4, and one of the first things we're going to be doing when we start on Unit 4 is some of this substituting stuff, because this becomes important when we do our linear unit. This is why we're working on the substitution portion, is going to help us with our linear unit. All right, so that's number 4. So we are almost halfway there. Let's look at a number 5. Number 5 is one of those special cases that really confuses us sometimes. So let's take a look. Hello. Oh, plus sign, hitting the wrong button. Number 5. So number 5 is x minus 5 divided by 3 equals 4. Right? This is one of those ones that looked a little bit different. And when we're in Algebra 1, when we're looking at this problem, what we often say is let's clear the fraction first, because you can't add the 5 to both sides until it doesn't have a denominator. Right now, we have x divided by 3 minus 5 divided by 3. That 3 has to go to the x and the 5. It's part of both of those. So we need to get rid of that 3 before we can do any additional math. So our first step is going to be to multiply by 3 on both sides. And when we multiply by 3, we're not going to distribute it, right? We're not going to distribute that 3. What we're going to do is when we multiply by 3, these 3's, 3 divided by 3 is 1. We pick the 3 to make the 3 on the denominator go away, because 3 divided by 3 is 1. That leaves me with x minus 5. We're not going to multiply out that 3 on the left side. We want to divide out those two 3's and leaves you with x minus 5. On the right side, we do need to multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. Now I have x minus 5 equals 12. To get x by itself, we add 5 to both sides. Right, so the second step here is add 5. That leaves me with x equals 17. So it's really not a really hard problem. We just got to remember, we got to get rid of that denominator first. We can't add that 5 until we get rid of the 3. So let's get rid of the 3 by multiplying it to both sides. And then we're going to do our check. So we have x minus 5 all over 3, and we want to see if that equals 4. So we're going to take the x here, and we're going to take that out and put the number 17. So I have 17 minus 5 all divided by 3. And then order of op says we do parentheses or grouping first. Remember, at the top of a fraction is grouping. So 17 minus 5 we have to do first. So we have 12 over 3, and then 12 divided by 3 is 4, which is what we wanted. We're in good shape. Yay. All right, so that is x minus 5 divided by 3 equals 4. First step is to get rid of that denominator and multiply by 3. All right, now we're halfway through our review notes here. Let's look at number 6. So number 6 is going to be a little bit different. So we have 3x plus 1 equals 8x minus 4. Right, so 3x plus 1 equals 8x minus 4. And here we look, when we're solving any equation, we're supposed to check to see if two things. One, is each side simplified all the way? One-step, two-step equations are already simplified. When we get into bigger, longer equations, we got to check. So 3x plus 1 is simplified, right? They can't be put together. 8x minus 4 is also simplified. You can't add x term and a number together. So we know we're good there. Now we check, and if we have variables on two sides, then we have to get the variable terms together first. Super good habit to get into is moving the variable terms across the wall first. So either we subtract 3x or we subtract 8x, right? We don't want to move the 1 and the 4 yet. We want to get the variables together. I'm going to subtract the 3x because I like to keep numbers positive if at all possible. So if we subtract 3x and I subtract 3x here, right, those x's go away, the 1 comes down. 8 minus 3 is 5, so I have 5x minus 4. It just helps with the positive signs are just easier for me to do math. You could do it the other way and work with negative signs. You'll get the same answer. And then now we have a two-step equation. Now we can move the constant. So now we're going to add 4 to both sides, right? So we're going to add 4, and we're going to add 4. 5x equals 4 plus 1 is 5. And then now we have one more step. We need to get x by itself. So it's 5 times x. Opposite of times is divide. So divide by 5. Both sides. That's 1. That's also 1. So 1x equals 1. 1 equals x. Right? Then we got to do our check. Always got to do your check. So 3x plus 1 equals 8x minus 4. So now we're going to do the check. Let's just do one at a time. So we're going to take the x out, and we're going to put 1 in its place. So this becomes 1. So we have 3 times 1 plus 1. So 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. Right? And then I'm going to put a little line here. We're going to do the same thing with the 8x minus 4. So I have 8. I'm going to make my x red just so it's nice and clear to stand out, right? The x is 1. And then we have minus 4. So 8 times 1 is 8 minus 4. 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 and 4 are the same. Our check worked out. So when you're doing these checks with the longer problems, do one side first, then do the other side, and then to make sure the numbers match. If the numbers don't match, you need to go back to your math on the left and see where there's the mistake. And I would say 85% of the time, the mistake is a negative number somewhere. So check your negative signs and your positive signs. Make sure you've added what you should add and subtracted what you should subtracted, and see if you can figure out where it went wrong. All right, one last solving problem, right? So that's number 6. Let's go to number 7. We have one last solving problem here. Then we'll look at some inequalities. So number 7, we have 2x plus 7 equals 3 minus 4. Where's the minus sign there? Times x plus 2. There we go. Nice big long problem. Right? So solving, right? We look at the left side, 2x plus 7, that's already simplified, can't do anything there. We look at the right side, and I have 3 minus 4 times x plus 2, right? So there's a few things we have to do. We always need to get rid of parentheses first. So we're going to distribute the negative 4 first. So the 3 comes down, negative 4 times x is negative, make that negative 4x. Negative 4 times 2 is a negative 8. Right? So my first step was to distribute negative 4. And then I'm going to bring down the 2x plus 7. Now I look at it. Left side still simplified. Right side is not simplified right. Now we got to collect like terms on the right. Right? This here and that here need to go together. So 3 minus 8 is negative 5. So I have negative 5 minus 4x now on the right. 2x plus 7 comes down on the left. Now, negative 5 minus 4x, those can't go together because they both don't have x's. So what we're going to do now is I see I have variables on both sides. We need to get the variables together. And I see I have a negative 4x, so I think the easiest thing to do is going to be to add the 4x to both sides because that's going to keep me with positive numbers. I like positive numbers. Right, so 4 plus 2 is 6 times x plus 7 equals negative 5. Right? So we want to get the variable terms together before we start moving constants. Now I have a two-step equation. We need to get rid of that plus 7. We're going to get rid of that plus 7 by subtracting 7 from both sides. So we're going to subtract 7, subtract 7. So I have 6x equals negative 12 because negative 5 plus negative 7 is negative 12. And then to get x by itself, we're going to undo 6 times x. The opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide by 6 on both sides. X equals negative 2. There we go. All right, so that is my answer. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps in this problem. Now we need to go through and we need to do our check. So I'm just going to do the check on the left first. So I have 2x plus 7. So I don't have a lot of room over here. Right, so we're going to take the x out and we're going to put negative 2 in its place. So I have a negative 2 here. And then I have 2 plus 7. So order of op says we do 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4, plus 7. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. So that's the first side. Second side, I have 3 minus 4 times x plus 2. So order of op says first we're going to substitute it. So the negative 2 goes into for that x. Order of op says we got to do what's in parentheses first. So negative 2 times 2 is 0. So I have 0 times negative 4 times 3. 0 times anything is 0. So I have 3 minus 0. 3 minus 0 is, in fact, 3. So we worked out. So that was one of the longer types of solving equations. This was your quiz last week. And we'll do some practice on this on Wednesday because I know we'll be going through your quiz and picking some of the problems that were most missed and doing them again Wednesday to make sure you guys are on track with that. All right, so now we have 3 more problems left. We're going to talk inequalities. Remember our inequalities. So number 8 here. Right, so I have, here's my inequality. I have negative 2. I have an open circle graphed to the right. All right, so this is my inequality here. I have an open circle, negative 2, graphed to the right. If you're asked to write an inequality, then you're being asked to write an inequality with a variable, less than or greater than symbol, and a number. So remember, always start with your letter. And then this is going to be it's going to the right, so it's going to be greater. It's not closed, so there's no equal to symbol, and it's -2. So this is x is greater than -2. That's the inequality for that graph. So if you're asked to write the inequality for a graph, that's what you're doing. You're filling it in. Remember, closed circles, right? If it had been this way instead, with a closed circle, then this would be x is greater than or equal to -2, right? This is closed. That means closed. Closed circle. So open circles have no equal to sign. Closed circles have an equal to sign. All right. We could also ask you to, given an inequality, solve it and graph it. So -3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4, right? This is an inequality. When we solve inequalities, we didn't make you write out all the steps and all that stuff, but we still can be helpful to draw a wall. We need to get the variable term by itself, so we need to get rid of this 5 first. So opposite of -5 is +5, so we're going to add 5 to both sides. -3x comes down, greater than or equal to 9. And now we need to get x by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by a -3. And this is when you have to remember the rule. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality flips around. So we have x is less than or equal to -3. All right, so if we're going to graph it, I have 0, I have -3, right? Less than or equal to means it's a closed circle at -3, and we're shading up and to the left, or over to the left, because it's less than -3. So it's going to be all the stuff over here on that side of -3. So remember, we flip the inequality when we multiply or divide by a negative number. It should be in your inequality notes as well. So if you have your inequality review notes, you should already have that hopefully written down. You can use all your notes. So you can use your inequality notes. You can use your from right before spring break. You can use your solving notes from last week. You can use this review, any of those for your tests. So you should have them out and make sure they're clearly marked. And these, if you keep forgetting to flip the inequality when you divide or multiply by a negative sign, you should have that nice and starred and big, and somehow reminding yourself about that. All right, one last problem. Number 10. Number 10 here, a little different. I'm going to give us an inequality. So x is greater than or equal to -5. And then I'm going to give us a couple of choices for answers that are possible solutions. So I have A is -7, B is -6, C is -5, D is -4, E is -3. It can be helpful to write down all 5 of those solutions here. And then what I want us to do right now is I want us to circle the ones that are solutions to x is greater than or equal to -5. Now it could be helpful before you start circling to draw the inequality, right? It's at -5, it's a closed circle, and it's going that direction. So it can be helpful here, I'll put these in green, right? Right, this is -6, this is -7, this is -4, and this is -3. If we put all those on our graph before we start answering, especially when you're dealing with negative numbers that are so easy to mess up, like this, we have, which one of these are in our shaded region? So our shaded region, let's see, I'll make our shaded region red here, right? Right, is all of this. It's all this. So in my shaded region is definitely -4, is definitely -3, and we got to say, is -5 included? It's a closed circle, so it is also -5. So, right, so it's not -6 or -7. Those are smaller than -5 on the negative side. Right, and I know I still do 10 problems. Let's take one more look at, let's do an 11, just because one of the other things that's so easy and a lot of us missed when we did our inequality quiz is if I give you a problem like this. What if I gave you 3 is greater than x to graph? Now remember, if you're going to graph this, I bet you 90% of us will graph this more correctly if we rewrite it with the variable first. 3 is greater than x is the same as x is less than 3. Because when we go to graph it, we have 0 and we have 3. It needs to be an open circle at 3, and its x is less than 3. So that means it's shading to the left. It can be so easy to try to graph that shaded to the right if you just look at the top one. So remember, if it's not written with the variable term first, feel free to move the variable term. You just got to flip the entire inequality around to make it read in the opposite. So 3 is greater than x is the same as x is less than 3. All right, so if you feel good about these notes, if you feel good about the Edulastic review that we're going to give you to do for your homework this week, and you do the whole thing, then you should be good for your test on Friday. I would highly suggest you start working on the Edulastic review before our live class on Wednesday, so that way you can ask us questions. We also have a tutorial on Thursday at 11. And we can schedule some time to work with you. So if the tutorial at 11 does not work for you, but you need some help and want to do some practice, let Mrs. Amstone or me know, and we will schedule a time that we can work with you and make sure that you're ready for the test. That's going to happen this week. So when you finish the Edulastic review, all the answers will be released to you. So you should be able to go through and see which ones you missed. And we are going to let you, if you want to retake the Edulastic review before the test, just let us know and we will redirect it to you. And then you can go through and attempt it again, the problems that you did not get right. So that is an option for you. So you can keep taking it as many times as you want. You just need to let us know so we can go in and redirect it to you. And we will keep redirecting it to you until Thursday afternoon. So if you think you might want to practice it 1 or 2 times, then make sure you're getting your homework done earlier in the week so that way we have the time to get that redirected to you every time you need that done. All right, so have a great week, and we will hopefully see you in our live class on Wednesday.